If you have any knowledge of F1, you know Lando Norris. He's a Twitch streamer, YouTuber, aspiring comedian, and a part-time Formula 1 driver. The cheeky Brit has made a name for himself in Formula 1, and it seems that he's finally hit his stride and is turning in pretty decent results with McLaren. He's definitely an above-average driver, but those come a dime a dozen in F1. The real question is, are we looking at the future Vettel or Hamilton, and can Lando Norris actually win a world championship? Norris's road to Formula 1 was decently smooth. With a rich dad, not Lawrence Stroll rich, but a millionaire nevertheless, Lando got his start in karting. He turned out to be pretty good at it, winning the karting world championship in 2014, and in doing so becoming the youngest world champion at the tender age of 15. After bouncing around the different Formula series and achieving good results, including winning the Formula Renault series and the F3 European Championship, Norris made it to Formula 2, competing in the very last race of the season. 2018 turned out to be a very decisive year for Norris, as it was his first full season in F2, and although he had been a junior driver for McLaren since 2017, he was promoted to test and reserve driver the following year. Racing for Carlin, Norris's season in F2 started well, and he stayed in the lead for the opening rounds. But before long, he was passed by fellow Brit George Russell. Despite a slight change in look, Norris managed to finish second in the championship and bag himself a seat in McLaren for 2018. And in doing so, he graduated to F1 alongside Russell and Alex Albon. Russell might have snatched the F2 championship, but Norris definitely had the better drive in F1, leaving Russell's Williams in the dust and earning himself a very respectable 11th in the championship during his first F1 season, as well as the coveted title of Rookie of the Year. Racing alongside the more experienced Carlos Sainz, Norris managed to outqualify his teammate at 11 of the 21 races, yet still ended up with just over half as many points in the championship, 49 to Sainz's 96. Sure, it wasn't the fabulous rookie season that Lewis Hamilton had with McLaren in 2007, but let's face it, as a team, 2019 McLaren wasn't 2007 McLaren. Despite this, or maybe because of the results, he did perfectly decent for a rookie after all. Norris signed a contract to stay with McLaren from 2020 to 2022. This contract was further extended until the end of 2025 earlier this year, but more on that later. And I'll get to the rest of his F1 career so far in a moment, but we need to address the elephant in the room. From his rookie season, Norris has been one of the most visible drivers, and it's not necessarily just because of his prowess on the track. There have been plenty of drivers with a decent rookie season who have all faded into obscurity. Antonio Giovinazzi had a fairly consistent and decent rookie year at Alfa Romeo in 2019, but he failed to turn it into a lasting career in F1. To understand what makes Norris different, cast your minds back to the Chinese Grand Prix of 2019. Daniil Kvyat crashed into both McLarens on the first lap, giving Norris a bit of air in the process and ultimately leading to his retirement later on in the race. Most drivers would have posted something mournful yet motivational about disappointing races and new opportunities, but not Norris. Norris made a meme for his crash. From this, McLaren's marketing got an idea and started producing light-hearted and laddish videos with the comedic duo that was Lando Norris and Carlos Sainz. This helped Norris to develop a persona of a goofy, practical joker reminiscent of his future teammate Daniel Ricciardo. All of this, along with Norris's meme literacy and natural but slightly awkward charm, has made him a fan favorite and one of the most hyped drivers on the current grid. And as I've already hinted, the hype isn't necessarily deserved, considering that his winning personality has yet to earn him an actual win in F1. But back to Lando's career. Managing to nearly make it to the top 10 in his rookie season, he showed clear improvement in 2020, and he started the season with his first podium, earning a third place in Australia. And this would be his only podium that year, but he showed decent and generally consistent results, finishing the points in all but 4 races and coming 9th in the championship. And in many ways, the 2020 season was a preview of 2021, Norris's most successful season to date. With 4 podiums and only 2 out of the point finishes, Lando came 6th in the championship, establishing himself as a force to be reckoned with within the midfield. However, the season wasn't all sunshine and podiums for Lando, it was also rain and slicks in Sochi. The 2021 Russian Grand Prix should have been Lando's induction into the Race Winners Club. Starting from his maiden pole position, Lando almost immediately lost his lead to former teammate Sainz, but managed to reclaim it on lap 13. He then remained in the lead until the very final laps of the race. Well, actually, Perez was in the lead for a little bit as well, but that doesn't really matter. What matters is, Norris was in the lead, seeming invincible and on his way to his first ever victory. And then what proceeded to happen was one of the most heart-wrenching and disappointing races to watch. And then with 5 laps to go, it started to rain, and Norris was on slicks like most of the other drivers. However, Norris and the team made the decision not to pit and to keep him out in effort to retain the lead. Despite that, pretty much everybody else on the grid and their mothers were pitting for intermediates. Crucially among the intermediate crew was Lando's closest rival of the race, Hamilton, Verstappen, and Sainz. Although he managed to hold him off for another few laps, Norris then aquaplaned in turn 5 of lap 51, allowing Hamilton to pass him. With the lead lost, McLaren tried to salvage whatever they could and finally pitted Norris, causing him to lose even more positions and come 7th in the end. And so, the race that should have ended up giving Norris his first win ended up giving Hamilton his 100th. And to add salt to the wound, had Norris won, McLaren would have taken their second consecutive race victory, as Ricciardo and Norris had taken a sweet first and second at Monza the previous race weekend. It was truly the perfect lead-up for Norris's first victory. A second place finish at Monza, a first pole position at Sochi, and a first win ready for the taking. You can't help but feel bad for Lando. But at the same time, we shouldn't feel too sorry for him. Yes, there isn't much that even the best drivers can do when the car, tyres, or strategy is working against them, but a much more experienced or skilled driver would have been able to salvage a race like Sochi. Commenting on the dream turn nightmare that was Sochi, Lando has pretty much taken full responsibility for the lost race, saying, "I guess we made a call to stay out. We stand by that call, but it was the wrong one at the end of the day. I made a decision just as much as the team, in the fact that they thought I should box and I decided to stay out, so my decision. I thought it was the way to go." And the current 2022 season hasn't been much better for Norris. Actually, it's been a lot worse. McLaren has been having reliability issues and problems with the car, most notably with downforce and pace. And with more than half the season already over, Norris has only achieved 1 podium. He's currently 7th in the standings, a healthy 70 points behind Hamilton in 6th. And he's still best of the rest, but no driver really wants that. There's still a long way to go until Norris can move on from being a midfield maverick to a championship contender. And although Norris doesn't have a race win yet, there is something he does have: self-awareness. In an interview given at the Hungarian Grand Prix this year, Norris said, "I didn't sign up to be with McLaren for this year I'm going to be winning races. This was far from my belief. I still knew it would take a good few years. 2024 to 2025 will be the first time when there should be less and less excuses in the way to go, why aren't we in a position we should be in?" Norris is right to think in the long term, as race wins and championship podiums rarely happen during your first years in the sport, but could his commitment to McLaren hold him back? McLaren has been the best of the rest for a good few years now, finishing 3rd in the Constructors' Championship in 2020, but they have been pushed off the podium by the return of the competitive Ferrari. Currently 5th in the Constructors' standings, McLaren is definitely not a threat to the usual podium crew. Trying to predict the future successes and failures of F1 teams is a thankless and frankly impossible task. I mean, can you believe that Red Bull used to be a midfield team? But unless Mercedes, Ferrari, and the aforementioned Red Bull all take a turn for the worse, and there's a thorough shake-up in the pecking order amongst the teams, it's unlikely that Norris can win a championship in a McLaren. At least not for the next few years. I mean, he has yet to win a race in a McLaren, which is a sort of prerequisite to winning a championship. Which isn't to say he isn't world championship material. He's definitely got the right drive and personality to be a world drivers champion, and he clearly believes in his own ability, and he's just about selfish enough to fight for what he believes is his. If by some miracle McLaren manages to build a truly competitive car, giving Norris half a chance at a championship, he will be a star driver in the team. Hailing from McLaren's own young driver program, he is McLaren's baby, who is perhaps cherished more than his other experienced teammates Sainz and Ricciardo have been. If McLaren isn't championship material as a team by the time Norris's contract runs out in 2025, he needs to find himself a winning drive to stay in the competition. Of course, the Formula 1 machine is a classic positive feedback loop. Wins produce more wins. Or in other words, in order to get a seat in a winning team, you need to prove your talent, preferably by winning. If Norris picks up a decent number of race wins during his years in McLaren, he can go knocking on other doors once the McLaren contract runs out. But if he spends a total of 7 seasons achieving mid-range results for occasional podiums, it's unlikely that any of the top teams will open the door to him. So at this point, it seems that Lando's relationship with McLaren could either be his making or undoing. He essentially has a guaranteed drive with them for the next few years, but will his loyalty be rewarded? At the same time, having McLaren's unwavering support must feel pretty nice, especially with teammate Daniel Ricciardo's future within the team and the sport in general in danger. Although Ricciardo has something that Norris is yet to achieve, several race wins, and one of them in a McLaren. Despite this, Lando has been outperforming the Honey Badger pretty consistently. McLaren has also been courting young drivers left and right, with Zach Brown seemingly signing anybody who shows promise within the feeder series. If they do end up dropping Ricciardo from the roster, a likely candidate for Norris's new teammate is another man from down under. It is, of course, none other than Oscar Piastri, who has been courted by many teams and for good reason too. He has something that Norris doesn't: an F2 championship win and an F3 championship win. Although Norris does have a regional F3 championship win, feeder series are complicated. If Norris's history in the feeder series were pretty decent, Piastri's is illustrious. He's basically the protagonist of a kid's book, winning every championship he enters. He is the first driver to win 3 consecutive F3 feeder series championships, starting with Formula Renault Euro Cup in 2019, F3 in 2020, and finally F2 in 2021. And alongside Nico Rosberg, Lewis Hamilton, Nico Hülkenberg, Charles Leclerc, and George Russell, Piastri is one of few drivers to win the GP2/F2 title in their rookie season. It's pretty difficult to compare an established F1 driver with a prospective one, but Piastri might give Norris a run for his money. Whatever it is that's stopping Ricciardo from getting to grips with the McLaren machine, Piastri might not have the same problem. And although Norris is McLaren's baby, signing Piastri would be a hard-won battle for McLaren, with all the Alpine drama which might shake Lando's position as the favourite child. That is, however, a lot of might-be's and what-ifs, but until we see Piastri in action, even if it is only a test drive from McLaren, it's hard to say anything for sure. But Piastri's arrival in the paddock will definitely shake up Norris's world a bit. Because if nothing else, the young Aussie will be needing to prove himself to both McLaren as well as other, more successful teams. So, in conclusion, can Lando Norris become a Formula 1 world champion? Yes, but in the same way anyone on the grid can. If you've made it into F1, you have a theoretical chance of winning. The chances may be minuscule and are heavily dependent on things that are out of a driver's control, but they're never zero. That being said, Lando's chances at winning are definitely better than, say, Latifi or, at this point, Ricciardo's. But it's unlikely that he'll become a world champion in the near future for a few key reasons. Firstly, he's yet to prove that he can even win a race. Secondly, McLaren isn't top team material, and outside of a few races, they can't consistently compete with Mercedes, Ferrari, and Red Bull. And third, we're probably only on driver championship title number 1 for Max Verstappen's many consecutive wins. And if Verstappen doesn't go on a Vettel-esque winning streak, Norris would still have Leclerc, Sainz, and even old nemesis Russell to deal with, all of which, bar Sainz, are much more likely championship winners. But in some years, or with a different team, we could be looking at world champion Lando Norris. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. I know Lando is pretty much everyone's favourite personality on the grid, but do you think he could actually win a world championship? Anyway, with that being said, I will see you next time when I'm going to be discussing how Max has changed the sport forever.